I don't know what happened. I just found it like this. Hey everybody, and welcome to or welcome back to the Bill at RC YouTube channel. Today we're going to be looking at putting this Axial SCX6 transmission back together. The reason I took this thing apart was while I was doing the frame rail modification for the body hinge. I had flipped it upside down and had it sitting on here, and when I came back there was a puddle of water on my mat here from the top of the transmission because it was upside down. So I said I'll take it apart and just take a look at it and see, you know, what the deal is. I did take it apart when I got it to make sure that there was grease in it and everything, but I didn't put any marine grease or anything like that in it, which I should have. So I figured that I would just make a quick video on how to put this thing back together. Especially when I was taking it apart, I noticed these shims. So as soon as I saw these shims, I said, well, I'll look in the manual to see where these go. Well, these shims were not in the manual, so I figured that I would note and make a video in case anybody else comes across this on where these shims go when you put it back together. I'm not exactly sure why they put shims in it in the factory, but didn't, you know, put a note or something in the manual. But as we put it back together, I'll measure the shims, tell you how thick they are, and I will show you where they go. Let's dive into this thing. So we're gonna throw this shaft right here together first. This is the shaft that had the shims on it. That way I can go ahead and get these knocked out and I don't forget where they go. The first shim is 0.2, we'll say 0.3 millimeters, or 11 thousandths thick. You got this gear, so this bearing, these bearings go in here. I also noticed when I took this apart that there were quite a few bearings that were locked up from the water. So the shim goes on before the gear does, and the gear goes this direction. So the shaft goes in there like that, and the shim goes on there like that. And what it does is shims this snap ring groove, this C-clip groove. It shims the bearing up to meet it. We're going to take one of these C-clips, and just you can also turn it this way and push it in. I need a bigger flathead screwdriver. And just pop it in like that. You've got a shim, 0.3 millimeters or 11 thousandths. Then you got your bearings. These are the bearings that were in it. While we're going through this, we'll be putting this this fast steady kit. And that is part number TFE7342. It is for the Axial SCX6 JLU. I really wouldn't see what the difference between the Honcho kit and this kit would be. Probably the same kit, just labeled differently for ease of finding. So then on this side, on this square hex right here, your shift selector goes on there. It does not matter which direction it goes on. And then these shims right here, which there are 2 of them, look at about 12 thousandths per, so 0.3. We'll just say all 3 of them are 0.3 millimeters, or 12 thousandths, 12 to 11 thousandths. The shims go on first, and then this has 2 bearings in it as well. It slides in there. Then this pin I'm pretty sure that's the only pin in the transmission. Yeah. Then this gear slides on there. And then there are 3 aluminum spacers inside the transmission, and like tube spacers. Here's one of them, and it goes on here. Now I'm gonna get me another. Get a little bit better flathead screwdriver there. So this E-clip, C-clip goes in there. You might be able to push this one on by hand. Yep. And there you have your first gear, second gear selector shaft. This is what it should look like together. That should slide freely. This shaft right here, which is an intermediate shaft, these 2 gears right here, square drive. Obviously one is bigger than one is smaller. The smaller one goes on first, then the aluminum spacer, then the big gear. Now if you've ever put any of these spring clips in anything, you'll know that they can be quite fiddly and can fly across the room. Then one of these 2 square drive gears go on the end of there. followed by a C-clip, but you got to make sure that you drop it 3 times. And that's what it looks like completed. This shaft is the front output shaft. So this larger square drive gear of these two goes on here, followed by the C-clip. Then this long aluminum spacer goes on there like that. And then you have the input shaft, which looks like this. It's threaded on this end because the slipper clutch goes right here. Your last square drive gear goes on there, followed by a C-clip. And that's what it looks like completed. These two gears here are idler gears. So we'll go ahead and break out our fast eddy bearing kit here. So the ones we're looking for are these, I'm pretty sure. Yep, these are the smallest ones in the package. It gets one on each side, and then these shafts go through there. So this right here is the shift selector rod. So the shifter goes on here. But first, so right here we have two grooves. So we have these two E-clips. So put one of those E-clips on the first groove, like that. Then your shift selector slides on the second E-clip. Drop it 3 times, and we'll slide it on. So now we'll take the rear of the transmission. Your shift selector goes in this hole right here. So these 2 screws right here are the only 2 screws that are longer than the rest of the transmission screws. But we're going to put these in here first. So these idler gears go here and here. Now we'll start putting these bearings in here. One there, one there, one there, and one over there. So the input shaft sits right there. The shift selector sits in there. So there's the mostly complete assembly of the so your intermediate shaft is up here, your front output shaft or your rear output shaft with the 2-speed sits there if you're looking at it from the top. So your shift selector lever goes here, you've got an idler gear here, your input shaft here, your intermediate shaft here, and your 2-speed shaft here, which is also your output shaft. Your rear output shaft, you've got an idler gear here, and your front output shaft will go there. We'll then slide this over top and align this and this with your 2 idler gear pins. And before we put this cover on, we need to put a bearing in there as well. Well, we actually might have to put our shift, might have to put this in after we put that. Yep. So it just sets down in there. I'm for just illustrative purposes, I'm not going to put grease in it yet. I'll put grease in it off camera, but I will put marine grease in it. So you'll have to put the shift select lever and your rear output shaft in that piece and kind of hold them together and get everything lined up. So I'm just going to put a couple of screws in the back to just hold it together. While we reassemble the top. So on this side, we will put 3 more bearings. Put all your screws back in. I am going to take it back apart, put my grease in it, and then we'll do the slipper clutch. Alright, so after we get all of that put in, she's nice and smooth. We'll put the slipper clutch on. So you've got this last aluminum washer, and it goes over the input shaft. Spacer, I should say. Then your slipper clutch. And then you have an aluminum spacer. And then your nylock. Now, I found this this slipper clutch is probably the hardest one to tighten. So how I do that is I take this flathead screwdriver and rest it against this and hold pressure. I did find that if you try to use, you know, a bolt or an Allen wrench or something on the back side here, even in second gear, it just can't hold it. I bent like 3 Allen wrenches and a screwdriver trying to hold this end, but holding it right here works pretty well. And then after we get that tightened up, we'll put our gear cover back on. And there we have it. So we'll throw this back in the truck.